it says California is now in the business of torturing senior citizens who advocate real food. 65-year-old James Stewart, the California quote-unquote milkman, was recently arrested under trumped-up charges, then lost in the L.A. County Jail for over a week, during which he was subjected to hypothermia, torture, interrogations, involuntary medical procedures, verbal intimidation, food deprivation, and even had his jail cell flooded with raw sewage, which he was forced to clean up by hand. Now, when Blake was reading this, he's like, what the hell is happening, you know? But I can so relate. I can so relate with exactly what must have happened to this poor 65-year-old guy, James Stewart. Because, you know, the world is going to come to an end when people like me, I'm 51 years old, and last year I was arrested for 24 hours and put into a holding tank to teach me a lesson. What was that lesson? The lesson is, you are my slave and I am your master. That was the lesson that I learned from a city of North Las Vegas pig, a cop, a city of North Las Vegas that detained me because taping him arresting my son. He was so pissed off. I was not in his grill. But I was not going away. He told me to leave, and I was charged and convicted in their secret court of non-record for obstructing a police officer. But for $12, I'll be damned if I'm going to let these people beat me down. For $12, I appealed that case, and I won on conviction. I did not hire an attorney or anything. I did it by myself, and I used the system. Because I'm figuring if they're going to, you know, I was convicted and charged $500 plus fees for that. But let me tell you, while I was in jail, you think people in jail are criminals? No. The vast majority of the girls that I was in there with, or the ladies, one of them was there. She surrendered herself to go in there because she was 1 year younger than I am. So she was 49 at the time. I was 50. And she lived in Henderson with her mother, and her mother is elderly, and her mother and the lady, her name is Lillian. Lillian told me that she had a tail light that was gone. So that was the probable cause. That was the law that gave the pig the authority to detain her. So when she got detained, because she's been unemployed, because as everybody knows, Nevada's got the worst unemployment and everything. So she's detained by the and they found out that her insurance had lapsed. Okay, so her insurance lapsed. So she's got to go pay $500 or whatever for the insurance and go buy insurance. So she says, you know what? I don't have money to pay for insurance. I'm just going to start using the bus. So she started using the bus, and while she was gone trying to get a job one day, 2 cops from the city of North Las Vegas showed up at her mother's doorstep, knocking on her door, terrorized the old lady and said, where's your daughter? She needs to go to jail. There's a warrant for her arrest because she didn't go to her court case. And the mom cried and says, I don't know where she is. She's out looking for a job. And they said, well, you know, if you got a credit card, we can run this and we could just, you know, get the money, you know. So it was really not even about punishing her for not having insurance. It was because the city of North Las Vegas is in debt and they wanted the $1,000. You know, so when Lillian came home and found out that her mother was in tears and how she got tyrannized by these pigs, she decided to surrender herself. She says, I'm never going to go through this again. So you go into this court of non-record, and the people who are there to surrender themselves, they have to wait a long time before they get seen, because the first people who get seen are the ones who are going to make a payment. So you go in and you tell the lady what. So it's slavery, people. You go into these things, and it's full of black and brown people and a few white trashy people who don't have the money or the means or the knowledge or the resources or anything, and they get violated. So people like me, I went there to the city hall, and I'm getting off track. But let's talk about this man. Okay, he was lost in the L.A. County jail for over a week, during which he was subjected to hypothermia, I believe it because it was cold as hell the 24 hours I spent in there. And let me tell you, my husband paid the bond for me and my son because we were both arrested. My son was arrested because he was open carrying, and they dropped that charge. And he got pulled over because supposedly his windows were too tinted. But on appeal, he was convicted for that. But on appeal, he was dismissed of that one or found not guilty of that because there was no testing that was done. So, yes, when I was in jail, it was cold as hell in there. And there was these benches that are made out of steel because it keeps it more sanitary. Because one of the ladies there who had been, she's a frequent flyer, she said, "Well, these are cold. They're not like the wood ones that she's used to, that she had been at another jail." And so it's like, wow, thankfully I was wearing long sleeves, but there were some people like that had like sleeveless or whatever halter, and it's like I felt sorry for them because I knew they were cold. It's like they keep you really super cold. It's like you're like in a freaking surgical room, doing surgery. I don't know why they keep them so cold, but people don't really even talk about this. But it's bringing back memories as I read this. Okay, he was subjected to hypothermia, torture. I wonder what the torture was, because I would love to get interview this guy. Interrogations, it's true. With me, they didn't really interrogate me at all because it was kind of like there's some code or something that it's like, oh, the bitch is being taught a lesson, So they weren't really too mean to me, but I do remember that the nurse, there's got to be a special place in hell for some of these nurses that we trust to be caregivers, and they're in the prison system probably because they can't get a job anywhere else doing real nursing, and because they can abuse patients in that setting. This one bitch nurse said to me, she's an LVN, she says, are you allergic to any meds or food or medications or any? And I says, no. She says, are you taking any medications? And I says, well, occasionally I take Xanax for anxiety. She says this. She turned like into a demon, and she said, well, you're not getting any Xanax in here. And I felt like saying, bitch, did you see me asking for it? But I was minding my manners. I've never been to jail before. I'm the new kid on the block. I'm going to, just observe and shut your mouth, TigerLily. Do not say anything to incriminate yourself. So this guy said he was subjected to hypothermia, torture, interrogations, involuntary medical procedures. Oh, yes, indeed, and I will never forget. They called us out like 4 at a time, and I think I was in at one point there was like 12 of us, but I turned it into kind of a slumber party, and I was telling these girls all these jokes, and we were just having a blast, and I was trying to make the most out of it and getting as much information from these girls as I could for the reporting that I do. And I came back and I researched Lillian, and she did exist. And I sent myself an email with all of the stuff that actually said that, why she got pulled over, and there was a bench warrant for her because of the tail light. So it's like her story checked out, and then I checked 2 others. Their stories checked out. People... we are in a slave plantation. This is what our United States of America has turned into. Whether you're on the left or the right or the center, it is a plantation, and our slave masters are the cops. So about the involuntary medical procedures, when I was in the city of North Las Vegas and we were lined up and we had to take a pee test, I asked one of the guys, good-looking little slave master. He was a guard. I says, well, what happens if I refuse to take give you some pee? And he says, well, I wouldn't advise that because things won't go well for you. And I said, oh, really? So, and I'm like, whoa. And so there are all these little sheeples being very compliant, and I'm asking questions, and the LVN was a different one that yelled, not the same one that yelled at me because the shifts had changed, so it was a new person, and she wasn't too bad. And I could talk her lingo because I was a nurse, so I'm just kind of probing for questions and everything. Well, it was 2 nurses at the same time. We're in this room together, and in 2 desks with 2 nurses, and there's a black chick that was sitting on the chair in front of the other nurse. Well, that black chick, she was like tired and she was just annoyed and frustrated, and she rolled her eyes. excuse me, is there a law against rolling your eyes? And that bitch nurse got so frustrated with her, and because she gave her lip. She says, I don't see, she had like a little attitude, and she never even said a bad word or anything. She just had attitude. She was tired. She had been picked up for, I don't know what she was picked up for, but she had attitude. And let me tell you, one of the things that they do to us is give us TB tests, which they have to go into the skin, into the forearm, into the skin to make sure that you don't have tuberculosis. And this bitch did the TB test on, it was freaking torture. I'm a nurse. I've given a lot of shots in my life. I mean, I was a nurse for 10 years. I've given many, many shots. Oh my God, I've never seen somebody give a shot to purposely. She was going zigzags, doing zigzags under the lady's skin, and the lady was screaming, and it's like she tortured her. Oh my God! So okay, this guy, this milk guy, California, is in the business. He says the 65-year-old James Stewart of California Milkman was arrested and then lost and jailed, in which he was subjected to hypothermia, torture, interrogations, involuntary medical procedure, verbal intimidation. Oh my God, I can talk about that. Verbal intimidation. You can hear those and they know who to mess with. It's almost like they kind of could see in my face, or maybe because I'm more articulate than some of the other inmates, or whatever we were called, the holding jail mates, whatever. They kind of know who to mess with. And one of them, oh my gosh, what is his name? I even forgot. I was so going to report his ass because he was just so rude to the inmates, asking questions or whatever. And, and it's this whole, we have control. We have to control you guys because you guys are under our control. Why? Me? Because I was recording a cop to make sure my son didn't get killed? Like 12 other people got killed that year? That's why I'm in jail? So verbal intimidation, food deprivation. Oh, let me talk about that. When I was in there 24 hours, guess what I had for breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you're in jail? And I guess this is high class compared to what these other more seasoned inmates or jailbirds were telling me. For food, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we got a bologna sandwich, and inside the bologna sandwich, it had the mustard that was still in its packet, okay? So if you didn't know and you just bit into it, you'd bite into the plastic. So you get a bologna sandwich, and on top of the bologna sandwich is one of those, like, famous Amos cookies. So they put one of those cookies on the bologna sandwich, and then they wrap the whole thing up in cellophane. And then you get that, and you get a thing of Lay's potato chips, that's got like 3 potato chips in them, and you get Kool-Aid. I wonder if that's symbolic for Kool-Aid, what happened. How many of you sheeple are going to drink this Kool-Aid, And it was orange. I was orange Kool-Aid. I will never forget it. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, bologna sandwich, an famous Amos tiny cookie, one, and Kool-Aid and 3 Lay's potato chips inside of a bag, a Lay's potato chips bag. So all I did, I ate my potato chips and I drank my Kool-Aid like the good little sheeple that I am, but there's no way I could stomach that bologna. No way. I usually don't do bologna unless it's Oscar Mayer, and it's like very infrequently, So I was giving the bologna to a pregnant girl who was there, because Judge Van Landshut gave her 5 days for contempt of court because she rolled her eyes in his court, in his top secret court of non-record. Now, that one I didn't look up, but she was there. She was 21 years old. She was like 5 months pregnant. She was obviously pregnant. She was crying. She had the gothic look on, super skinny, anemic. The girl needed some decent food, and I gave her my bologna sandwich, and it's like I didn't need it, I didn't want it, So I'm besides that, when they weighed us, I'm like 165 pounds. Hell no, I'm not. I'll pass on that bologna sandwich. So since then, I have lost quite a bit of weight, you guys. That was kind of a shock to me, but that was kind of the thing that kicked it up for me. So, yeah, food deprivation is what this 65-year-old man had in jail, and even his jail cell flooded with raw sewage, which he was forced to clean up by hand. Yes, I totally believe that, because guess who gave us the bologna sandwiches? People who are on their slaves, on their, what is it called? Trustees, you know, and yeah, they're trying to get less time or whatever, so they do like community service, and they're the slaves, you know, and there's slaves everywhere, you know, these people. And in fact, today I'm in Utah, and my husband went to plead not guilty to an infraction for leaving our dogs unleashed or whatever, and I said, hey, look at this, white slaves. You know, all these white boys, you know, that are picking up trash, you know, and you know that they're prison inmates or whatever. You know, it's free slaves, you know. God, slavery is alive and well in the United States of America. So anyways, going on to this article that Blake the Eccentric had on his show, it says, the Los Angeles Times is so corrupt and hoard out to its corporate interests that it won't even cover this story. There is torture and abuse of farmers happening right in Los Angeles, and the LA Times absolutely refuses to cover the story. How's that for pathetic journalism? Amen. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen and freedomizers and friends and foe? The way to use this mainstream media is to find an angle. For example, I found out back before I was awakened and I was a nurse, I'm starting to question, because I've always been a critical thinker, but I started to question, nursing shortage? Are you kidding me? I mean, and when I did crunch the numbers, there was no nursing shortage. It was these hospital association people that were getting in bed with our congressmen to relax the laws so that we can get the cheap Filipino nurses in. There was no shortage of American nurses, for God's sakes. What a lie. You know, and then the LA Times, I think it was during President Bush's era. Now, I voted for Bush both times, but he said he came on the radio on his Saturday show one time, and he said, we need to give $1 million to the hospital so that we can have electronic health care. I'm like, are you kidding me? Bush? Are you kidding me? All of these hospitals, and I was a nurse, I worked in 34 places in my time because I'm very hyper, and, you know, I've done everything from birth to death, you know, and maybe out of all of those places, there were maybe 2 hospitals that were not computerized. So one was out of Houston. I think it was called St. Joseph's or something. I did some mother-baby care there. There was no computerization there in 2001. But all the other hospitals and clinics I had gone to, they all have computers. The problem is not their access to computers. The problem was that they couldn't get the damn doctors to use them. And why can't we get doctors to use them? It was because the doctors bring patients to the hospitals. And so therefore, the hospitals are beholden to the doctors. No doctors, no patients. No patients, no revenue, you know? So it's a whole thing there. So I'm like, are you kidding, Bush? Are you that dumb? I'll tell you what. Stefan Molyneux, who is going to be interviewed, who is my hero, he's going to be interviewed on the Voice of the Resistance on Wednesday, March the 14th. He says that, and I chuckled because I see it now. I mean, if I would have heard this when I had just voted for President Bush, I would have been pissed. He said, had there not been a government, Bush, more than likely today, would be an alcoholic used car salesman. Amen, brother. I so believe it now. You know, all of these corrupt politicians, it's all about the control. And as long as there are political offices to be held by somebody, there is going to be this corruption. So this Stefan Molyneux, he's right on the money. And so what I did with this LA Times is when I heard President Bush talking about this, I sent to the LA Times, I sent an article that actually got published, and it exposed the relationship between the doctors and the nurses and the fact that you can't make doctors do jack. They're like cops. They're like cops on steroids or without the guns. They got shots and stuff, and they kill people too. More people get killed by medical errors by doctors than you guys. Hospitals are very dangerous places. So anyways, in order to get my story into the LA Times, and it was published, and after the show, I'll see if I can find it, and I'll drop it into the chat for anybody who's interested. The LA Times, I said, they published my story about that, but I had to go in with a beating Bush up, even though I had voted for him twice. I said something about, Bush is this is a ridiculous thing that Bush has said, and here's why. So they actually published it on a Saturday paper. So I'll find that and see if I can do it. But anyways, that's what that story said, and it goes on to say, and I'm almost running out of time, James, who is the guy who was in jail, the 65-year-old James Stewart that was put in jail because of the farming thing. What was it? He's the milkman. He was charged because of the milk industry. And this article talks about how the LA Times doesn't want to touch the story because it's about the milk industry, So anyways, the article went on to say that James, this 65-year-old guy that was in jail and tortured, James passes all the tests for credibility. No criminal record. His testimony cites accurate details of his experience in jail, such as being held in cell number Denver 22. And he has no agenda other than to assert his freedoms to pursue life, liberty, and the American dream. How's that Constitution working for us, ladies and gentlemen? The article continues. For that, he is targeted, surveilled, arrested, tortured, malnourished, brutalized, and then in his story is utterly ignored by the California press. And then I'll finish this article because it was just a clip of it, and I'll try to remember to put the link on there. It closes like this: if an American farmer being tortured nearly to death in an LA County jail isn't news, I wonder what is. Oh, wait. The LA Times is happy to report on Libya's abuse of detainees. See, they cover it gleefully. So they set a link to the LA Times and their coverage of Libya's abuse of detainees. Let's look right in our backyard. Go to your own community. Check out who your cops are, because without cops, these politicians could not take away our freedoms, ladies and gentlemen. So that is my show for today.